What's going on, guys? Killer6 back with another Borderlands top 10 video, and this time we're taking a look at the 10 most requested features for Borderlands 3. We're looking at the things that will most improve the overall experience of Borderlands 3 with this list, and who knows, maybe if you smack that like button, Gearbox will make some or all these things a reality. These will be in no particular order, but the top 3 will be my 3 favorites. With that said, let's get started.
Number 10.
Getting the list started is one that I think would be a big hit in the Borderlands community: the ability to respec anywhere at any time without spending any of your money. Some games offer this level of customization, but for Borderlands 3, being able to respec before Wotan or Anathema and the takedowns isn't possible since there's no respec station like there often was in Borderlands 2 before raid boss fights. Giving us the option to respec right from our menu would allow us to change up our playstyle based on weapons that we find in an area without having to go back to Sanctuary and pay money for the change.
Number 9.
Coming in at number 9 is Dialogue Skip. Tired of talking to Lilith? Sick of waiting for Tyreen to tell you about her evil plans? Well, with a dialogue skip option, we could speed up playthroughs, giving players an incentive to play again. Combine this with the removal of requiring us to go down to a drop pod door to travel to new locations, and add a fast travel right on the bridge of Sanctuary 3, and suddenly talking to Lilith isn't quite as tedious. Any solution to this problem would be beloved by all fans.
Number 8.
At number 8 on this list, let's talk about matchmaking. Now, I'm not sure what exactly is going on with the matchmaking system in Borderlands 3, but it is absolutely not working as intended. Perhaps this is an unintended side effect of having so many mayhem levels, or maybe there's something wonky in the code. Whatever the case, the matchmaking system needs a serious revamp. Possibly even a system where people can start lobbies that are publicly viewable and joinable. Phantasy Star Online had this system on the Dreamcast 20 plus years ago, so I would love to see something like this now in Borderlands 3.
Number 7.
Number 7 is all about those beloved loot enemies: Chubby Skags, Bloated Rack, Loot Tinks, Thieving Jabbers, Amber Lambs, Coffer Ants, Shiny Grogs. All of these are examples of enemies that show up so rarely that they absolutely need to have their own dedicated loot drops, and those drops should be some of the best items in the game. This would reward us for exploration of maps and actually pay attention to the enemies that we're killing. I went Shiny Grog hunting in Proving Grounds a while back, and it was a ton of fun. Now, if only those Shiny Grogs had a chance to drop some really awesome rare loot. Something that you could hold up and say, yeah, I farmed that. This would also allow the devs to further spread out the loot pools. Items like the Hellwalker could be moved to Thieving Jabbers and off of Road Dogg, who already has 2 other drops in his loot pool. The Trevinator would be an awesome and exciting drop from Chubby Skags as a homage to Trevor Eastman, who was a huge fan of the Borderlands series. The Becca, which doesn't even have a drop source other than completing the Hammerlock hunts, could be put in the loot pool for the Shiny Grog. There's so many options, and it's a shame that these rare enemies don't feel special in Borderlands 3.
Number 6.
At number 6, I would love to see the Crazy Earl's Veteran Rewards machine be added to each DLC as a way to use Iridium to rebuy quest rewards or even purchase new versions of legendary items from that DLC. Currently, the Veteran Rewards machine only allows you to get base game quest items via the machine on Sanctuary 3. Adding a machine to each DLC in the main hub for each area would be an awesome way to allow us to grab new versions of quest rewards, since anointments are so problematic with farming. Using this, you could farm up a splash damage Scoville from DLC 1, or a perfect Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge artifact from DLC 2, maybe even a Rico shield, or make it so you can get random legendary items from each DLC, including quest rewards, and add in things like the OPQ system, Wedding Planner, No Pew Pew, Yellow Cake, Fish Slap, and so many more. This solves 2 problems: lack of use for Iridium and a way to get better versions of quest rewards or limited time items that were for events that we participated in.
Number 5.
Coming in at number 5, let's talk about fixing the Guardian Takedown. For better or worse, this raid was a bit of a flop. It absolutely has its merits, however. Both boss encounters are exceptionally fun in my opinion, but the whole raid is mired by the crystal phases, the wonky platforming, enemies being able to bump you off the map with a gentle nudge because of low gravity, which also makes trying to revive teammates just abysmal, and the loot. God, the loot. There's nothing worse in the Guardian Takedown, in my opinion. I can suffer through the crystal phases, the platforming, all that, but when you kill these invincible bosses and they drop you a Malik's Bane, Polybius, and a bunch of other junk, and not a single raid-specific legendary, well, that's a problem. Gearbox did an awesome job on the Maliwan takedown loot. Both Wotan and the Valkyries drop a ton of loot, including guaranteed raid-specific loot. This has to happen for Guardian Takedown, and please give us checkpoints after both crystal phases and or right before each boss. That way, if we do get bumped off a platform, we start right before the boss again, because there's nothing more disheartening than getting to an Anathema and then having some weird wonky mechanic fail, and then you fall off the map, and then you have to go all the way back to do crystals again. No, at that point I just give up. Now, an even better solution in my opinion would be to give us an option to pay Iridium to skip right to Anathema and or Scourge. Make it costly. We don't care. Most of us are sitting on tens of thousands of Iridium right now. We want to chase loot. Let us do that in a much more fun way.
Number 4.
One of the most requested features is the ability to reroll anointments on gear. We're literally sitting on crazy Earl levels of Iridium over here with nothing to really spend it on. Maybe to make it more interesting, you would have a machine for this, like the grinder from the pre-sequel. You have to put in one item, which will be the item that you want a new anointment on, and then a second item, which has the anointment you want. Then you add Iridium and press the button, out pops your new and improved weapon, shield, or grenade. This could even be expanded to changing elements on items if enough people were interested. Personally, I'm not a fan of games where you have to craft things, but I do think it would be nice to have the option to swap out weapon parts if you have matching weapon types. Maybe even have a rare weapon that can only be obtained by collecting rare weapon parts and combining them. I don't know, this might be too far off on a tangent. Maybe something more for Borderlands 4 at this point.
Number 3.
Alright, how about this? Imagine that normal mode in Borderlands 3 was levels 1 through 65, no mayhem mode options whatsoever, no anointments whatsoever, just classic fun Borderlands gameplay. Legendary drops would be 10% from bosses across the board. World drops would be back to that lower percentage like Borderlands 2, maybe a smidge higher. But we want legendary drops to feel special, right? We know this is achievable because Arms Race has shown that the game can be balanced well without mayhem modifiers and anointments. This would only require a few minimal changes from the system we currently have, namely making normal mode enemies and missions scale to your level as you play, and then make true Vault Hunter mode be what we currently have with Mayhem levels, modifiers, all that stuff if you want it, or Mayhem 11 if you don't want to bother with the Mayhem modifiers. This would give us an actual reason to do true Vault Hunter mode. Right now, true Vault Hunter mode is literally pointless. If you run Mayhem levels at all, there's no difference between normal and true Vault Hunter mode. They're identical with Mayhem enabled. The downside being that you would likely be required to do a second story playthrough on true Vault Hunter mode to unlock Mayhem mode, but maybe just give us an option to skip replaying the story if we don't want to.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2, Pearlescence. Pearlescence returning to Borderlands 2 would be huge with this game because right now there's no real chase for extremely rare loot like there was in Borderlands 2. In that game we had Pearlescence, and then we had pearls that were locked behind higher OP levels with only like a 1% chance to drop on lower OP levels. We also had things like the Twister that you could only get from Ak, the Chopper, which was only droppable from Dexidius, the Cobra, and so many other ones that were really hard to get. 94 Sham, anybody? In Borderlands 3, the hardest thing to get is the anointment roll that you want on the item that you're currently farming. Give us something to chase is basically what I'm saying here. Naturally, with Pearlescence, that leads me to
Number 1.
raid bosses. In Borderlands 3, we have Wotan, the Valkyries, Aista, the allegedly invincible, Anathema, and Scourge. There's also challenging bosses like the Psycho Reaver, Evil Lilith, Sponge Boss, but what I think Gearbox has done very well are the 2 takedowns. And while I enjoy the Malawan takedown, the Guardian takedown obviously was not a big hit with the community at large, mostly due to lack of checkpoints and lack of quality loot, as I mentioned earlier in the video. What the Guardian takedown did very well, though, in my opinion, were the boss fights. Anathema was a fun fight to me. Having to move and avoid the exploding platforms to me felt like old school boss fights from back in the NES era of video games. And I know a lot of people will complain and say, but I hate those immune phases. And I'm with you, I hate immune phases too. But that's what was good about Anathema. The immune phase required you to do something while you were waiting for the immune phase. So unlike Aista, it wasn't just stand there and hold the trigger. Same with Wotan and the Valkyries. Gearbox has proven that they can make some awesome boss fights. It's just a shame that with the Guardian takedown, it's mired by the tricky and unfun platforming, the annoying crystal charging phases with what feels like a never-ending supply of just bullet sponge mobs, and their only goal is to like make the crystals take longer to charge than it needs to, and just the lack of checkpoints and loot. But I think Gearbox hears our complaints on this takedown, and I think that they would use that knowledge to make better boss encounters. So while I wouldn't mind another takedown or 2, I would also love a traditional raid boss or 10 sprinkled in there as well. Perhaps a Moxie's Underdome of Digistruct constructed raid bosses of the past. The current Vault Hunters could test their mettle against Terramorphous, Vermivorous, Hyperius, the original Crawlmarax, the son of Crawlmarax, Pyro Pete. Hell, I'll even take the annoying Master G fight at this point. We just need some in-game content. With that said, there has been an interesting development while recording this video. On the 18th of December, Randy Pitchford had tweeted out all the things that were actually done by Gearbox in 2020, and it was a substantial list. And one of the responses was from this guy who said all that and still no raid bosses. And I absolutely agree with that sentiment, if not necessarily the way that you went about saying it. But Randy responded to that with a nice little reply that says the game already includes multiple takedowns, which is a meteor take on that idea. That said, stay tuned for more news soon that I think will make you happy. And then later on that same day, somebody else said, yeah, whatever, open the door in Ascension Bluff and slap a thick ass raid boss in there. And Randy once again responded with, stay tuned. This gives me some hope. Now, granted, they've kind of hinted that they were going to do something with the Ascension Bluff door. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a door in the map Ascension Bluff that you just can't go through it. And we have seen from pre-release footage from IGN that there was a Vermivorous style raid boss behind that door, but currently in the game there's no way to access that door to get in, so we've been constantly hoping for some way to get in there for a while now. I hope you guys enjoyed this top 10 list of changes that Borderlands 3 needs. If you did, then hitting that like button would be greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comment section down below what would you change, and don't forget to subscribe for more Borderlands content, including playthroughs, top 10s, item guides, consistent hotfix and patch notes videos. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.